Welcome to the afternoon sessions. I'm going to open us up this afternoon quickly with something that I heard yesterday that really stuck with me. I heard a panel with Adrienne Mishler. She does Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube. Anybody know that? Yes. She has 13 million followers on YouTube. She was like my pandemic BFF. But she said that to focus on a kind, clear, and grateful beginning. And that really sort of stuck with me. So I'm going to do that today. I am honored and grateful to be here today on International Women's Day. Woo! Moderating this important discussion with these two incredible founders. I'm Michele Calhoun. I'm the head of consumer health and wellness at GoodRx. My team works with OTC, CPG, and consumer health brands to help them access GoodRx's audience of 1 in 4 Americans that rely on us to make healthcare decisions. And women's health is an incredibly large category and focus for GoodRx. We have over 48 million people coming to GoodRx for women's health in everything from fertility to birth control to menopause. And I am joined today up here by Ariel, Kaye, who is the CEO and chairman of the board of Parachute, and with Jessica Schaefer, who is the founder and CEO of Lushi. And so my first question, Jessica, kick it off to you. You want to tell the audience what Lushi does?
Sure. So we just launched in December. We closed a $5 million seed round, and we're a modern fertility platform focused on egg freezing and IVF and making the experience not suck. So with Lushi, you can hire injection specialists to administer the shots for you, and we have a really beautiful, intuitive app platform for women. So.
Did you all hear that? $5 million seed round of funding for a women's health company. That's awesome. Ariel, do you want to talk a little bit about getting involved with Lushi?
Sure. I'm Ariel. I am an investor and on the board of Lushi. And Jess and I met last summer, and I was instantly inspired by what she's building. I think we can probably all agree that there is a real deficit in terms of research, innovation, funding that's going to women's health. And I think what she's building and what the team is building is just has such significant opportunity to improve an already overwhelming, stressful process for women and make it incredibly better.
Thank you. When we were prepping for this session, one of the themes we honed in on was accessibility and affordability, which is also part of GoodRx's mission and Lushi's. And in fact, we were speaking earlier that GoodRx just published some data on the pink tax, which is how much more women pay for healthcare. It's about 30% more, which equates to $8.6 billion a year. So it's really staggering. And so can you talk a little bit about how Lushi is addressing this?
Sure. So one of our B2B marketing strategies is to partner with pharmaceutical companies and companies like GoodRx. But the current administration, President Trump just passed an executive order to make IVF more affordable and accessible for women, which is great. We love to see progress being made there. But if you look at the cost of Ozempic, it's $40 a unit. If you look at the cost of Follistim, which is one of the 10 fertility drugs that you need to take if you're going through egg retrieval, it's over $1,000. And the cost to produce it is actually cheaper. And I think the question is why. You have a really high intent customer, and so women are willing to spend whatever it takes to have a baby and their spouse or partner, and they're freezing their eggs too late or going through IVF when it's almost too late. And so you need to go through many rounds and many cycles, making it very expensive. And so we're hoping to do, we've been speaking with Mark Cuban about how we can potentially partner with him on cost plus drugs to drive down the cost of fertility treatment so that everyone can actually do it. It's not, it's not shocking that women are working and we're waiting to have babies or we don't find the right partner. And so women really need to take control of their fertility options younger.
Yeah, and do you want to talk a little bit about how Lushi is educating them to do that?
So we're doing fun stuff. My background, I used to own a PR firm. This is my second company. Before that, I worked for a hedge fund, the guy who owns the Mets, Steve Cohen. That was fun. But my PR firm, we largely focused on fintech before it was fintech and retail investing before a lot of people were getting into the markets, working with Robinhood and Coinbase, Acorns, Public.com, a lot of brands where they were really humanizing and making the language much simpler for people to understand how to start saving and investing. When you look at fertility as one of those taboo topics, money was a taboo topic, fertility is a taboo topic, and so we're doing fun stuff. We just did this billboard with the model from Naked and Afraid of Love or something. He's very hot, very good looking, and it was in Soho, and he doesn't have a shirt on, he has a carton of eggs, and it just says fertilized, not scrambled. Women have been loving it. They're saying he's making them feel more fertile. But we were trying to play on what's happening right now, which is like the rising cost of eggs. And there's been a shortage, and women will also have a shortage if you wait too long. So,
right. So you're engaging younger women.
Engaging younger women, doing digital billboards, everything is voice activated. I think it's not a surprise to anyone that younger people, they're not texting, they're not reading, everything is around AI and voice.
Yep. Do you both want to talk a little bit about, one of the comments you made was sort of like the reality that, most fertility clinics are run by men and how, the impact that has on you and, what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I've always been in male-dominated industries, and I was quite frankly shocked that the fertility industry was being run by all male fertility doctors. It didn't really make sense to me. The people who are running the clinics, who own the clinics, are male, and they didn't see a problem. But then if you go to TikTok and Instagram, there's all these women who are crying about administering the shot. So if you haven't done it, it's very do-it-yourself doctor. You go home, mix up fertility drugs, and then you administer, or your partner does, which has not led to a lot of happy marriages. But I think there's a lot of room for innovation.
How are you thinking about building this brand? Ariel, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I think there's, Jess just touched on the fact that there's already, on social and on various channels, a lot of people talking about why this is so hard and how brutal it is. And so I think so much about the opportunity to build this brand is around community and really bringing people together so that they feel less alone and to destigmatize and educate. And you touched on it earlier, but I think there's a huge opportunity here to educate people in their 20s that this is something that you should get started on earlier. And, that goes along with, hopefully making the cost of these drugs cheaper and more accessible. But I think that, community is a huge part of it, and education and demystifying and making it fun. This fun is like a weird word to use, but, this is the start of, your journey to have a child, which is a beautiful experience. And yes, administering shots is not like your ideal Friday night, but this should be, you should have a partner in it. And I think Lushi's really doing that. Lushi's trying to be that partner. And so, I think leaning on influencer and social and just, and affiliate partnerships and just really being part of the conversation, will hopefully drive a lot of awareness. And, with a lot of things like this, word of mouth is going to be huge too. It's like people talk about amongst friends, I'm doing this, this is my pain points. How do I solve these problems?
Yeah. So what's been surprising in your experience so far? Or, reactions that sort of you didn't expect that you were going to get?
I mean, I think a lot of female founders, the conversation is around, oh, there's not enough funding going to female founders, and there isn't enough conversation talked about the terms that women generally receive. I was always sort of in the private equity hedge fund world, and so I knew a lot of these guys, and even me, the terms they were putting in front of me were pretty predatory. We had people who were like, oh, we'll do the full $5 million at a $25 million post, and you're thinking like, wow, like no women are receiving funding. This is so exciting. And the reality was the term that he wanted, he would have full ownership control and be able to basically shut down like any of our ideas at any point in time. And so we turned him away. I think one of the more interesting things has been we've had so many women tech bros, a lot of my like exited founder friends who have gone through this process, and they ended up investing in Lushi. They have gone through IVF and fertility. And so we have a lot of men who have joined the platform, and they're very interested if we're doing semen analysis on, you can tell a lot about your health by testing semen and sperm freezing. And so we're looking into other areas to expand.
And this is your second company. And so you have experience in this space. Do you have advice for people kind of starting out who maybe don't, that are looking for investment?
Well, starting out, I think founders, when you sell a company, it's your baby, right? It's your entire identity. I definitely went through a period of deep, dark depression. My whole identity was PR and marketing. And then I thought, well, this is something I'm really passionate about, and I think I could have an impact. But leaving something else behind can be scary, right? The one piece of advice that one of my clients he started Yield Street, they just acquired Cadre. When I was considering selling my business, he's like, always sell. You don't know when the market will shift, and you're young, you can create something new. And so that advice was probably the simplest advice I've ever received. But if you have a lot of offers and they make sense, then it's time to get out of the business, even if you're attached to it.
Thank you. That's good advice. Ariel, your background, you started in media and advertising at Digitas. We were talking a little bit about that. Do you have any advice? And you started a company also. Can you talk a little bit about that for this audience? Like, do you have any advice for people who are kind of thinking about an entrepreneurial venture?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I started Parachute 11 years ago. And saw an opportunity in the market to create something that didn't exist at the time. 90% of purchases in the home space were made offline. There was no brand. But I think, for me, it was really about telling stories and connecting with customers and inspiring people with beautiful products that were high quality and creating comfort. And it's sort of a similar story now. I think that's continues to be my passion, and one of the reasons why I love what Lushi's doing. I mean, it's about inspiring people and creating a product that brings comfort into their lives, and also is just like a really quality, solid experience. And so, but I mean, for me, it's my advice is always simple, like trust your gut and intuition, and
Mm-hmm.
listen to feedback and ideas around you, but what's best for your company.
Yeah. And you mentioned, Jessica, that, you're helping men too. That feels kind of unique in this space. Can you talk a little bit about that? It seems like men are embracing what you're doing.
Well, I think your partner is the most important person in this, right? And you need to get them on board. And historically, it's been a very awkward, weird conversation. And so with our app, which goes live April, so right now we just have our web product, and then we're going live with our full concierge platform in April. We have different user experiences, and one is for your spouse or your support bestie, whoever is helping you go through this process, so that it's like, oh, why is she being such a bitch today? She's gonna kill me. And really, we actually hired comedic writers so that you don't have to yell at your husband or your boyfriend or whoever. You read it, they get it, they're like, I'm gonna be nice to her today.
I love that. So you're actually talking to them like a human, like how they would Yeah, that's great.
Well, like, all the content right now that you receive when you're going through this process is like from the 80s and like outdated and like very dry and not engaging. And I think that part of what Lushi does is like create a camaraderie between the person that's using the platform and the app, so that you like have that connection and you feel less alone. And there's, whether you're using the full service of having a concierge come to your house, or if you're, just using kind of the basic content platform, like you got someone in your corner.
Right. You're making it approachable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the title of our session today, which is the Founder's Love Affair, Risk, Divorce, and Betting on Yourself. Can you tell us about that?
That was like very PR, I can't seem to get rid of it. But no, when I sold my first company, I went through a divorce and I decided to freeze my eggs. And I was like, oh, I wish I did it at 25, not 35. Your optimal egg quality is 26 to 32, but the average age women do it is 36. I was actually hosting a dinner party for media and CEOs, and my doctor called me and he's like, oh, you're pregnant. This is a real story, by the way. And I was like, excuse me? First of all, it was impossible because, you're not supposed to have sex when you do this because you could have 8 babies at the same time. Just an FYI. Things that people don't talk about. But I had taken the trigger shot early, which was triggering, and it basically, the hormone, it looked like I was pregnant. And so he said, oh, just do it all over again, as if, my body's cattle and my time doesn't matter. And I thought, that's crazy. And just the way they were communicating, they're calling, they're emailing, it was very outdated. We have so much technology. My entire background has been building, multi-billion-dollar tech companies. So I have a lot of engineers in my pocket who I've made a lot of money and they owe me favors. So we've been building a better experience. And the whole thing, like betting on yourself, there were a lot of people who are like, oh, just do PR. Like, you're so PR. Why would you do this healthcare company? Or why are you working at all? Why don't you just go get your second husband and have a baby? And I'm like, what? So it's a risk, but there's so much more reward. And I think it's been incredibly rewarding to be able to have the time, resources, and energy, to build something that's an impact company and actually give back to people, which was not the case when I'm doing PR for B2B payments companies, right? Or billionaires who already have billions of dollars. So.
Yep. Ariel, do you want to talk about that at all?
She didn't like my title. She's like, do we have to?
I'm just here.
That's funny. Does anybody have any questions from the audience?
Hi, thank you guys for talking about this topic. It's very important. My name is Dory Light. I'm also from Razorfish. I'm just wondering, mainly, I guess for both of you, Jessica and Ariel, how you're bringing men or the partners more into the conversation, or how you see that coming down the line more, because it feels sometimes like IVF and fertility treatments, there's so much of a burden on women, like it's the women's issue that she has to suffer with. But how do you see that expanding into the partners more in future marketing efforts?
Well, so with the app, you can invite your partner and they have a completely different experience. But we're doing events like Lushi After Dark. We're partnering with Hinge. We're partnering with some of the dating apps and doing things where you're talking about your fertility score, and with guys, we're calling it the count, which will be ridiculous. I probably shouldn't be sharing with you guys. But I think that, normalizing it, because guys are half of the problem. And it's not any fault of our own. We've been quite literally poisoning our fertility. We're the first generation where it's like we're drinking out of water bottles. Like when you go to get your little Starbucks coffee, it's lined with microplastics. So you're drinking plastic, which is really significantly decreasing everyone's fertility. Guys are putting their phones like right next to their golden jewels, and it's not helping any of us, and no one's talking about it. We have the lowest birth rate we've ever had. It'll have huge economic implications, and then we have the rising infertility rates. And so I think that's one reason why this new administration is focusing on it, because it is a big problem.
Other questions?
Does anybody else have questions?
Not to end on such a dark note.
Were you going to say something before the question?
Oh, no, I was just going to say that the one way Lushi is different. Most of your doctors are just like, oh, you're of this age, you're of this profile, you should do this. We actually take a holistic approach and look at what you're eating, what you're drinking, and how you can change your diet before you even go through this process so you have a successful outcome. And then also post-retrieval, we have an entire, it's called the Glow Reset, where you completely detoxify your body and lose all of the water weight that you've gained from doing it, which...
So it's like a holistic lifestyle adoption for the treatment. Question I have about physicians. Are you communicating with them at all? Is that in the plan to have that? Yeah. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I'm not running the medical team. That would be really scary. Our chief medical officer is a robotics OBGYN out of Stanford. She's incredible. So our entire team of physicians, basically on the platform, you can talk to them. We created a closed AI. It's called the Lushi. But you talk to the Lushi, you can ask the Lushi questions you would normally ask your doctor. It's like a new WebMD process. It's super innovative. We spent a lot of time building the technology, but we'll add all of the other medical experts onto the platform. So you'll have mental health, acupuncturist, nutritionist, anyone who's involved in making sure you have the most optimal outcome.
That's amazing, because I think one of the things we all struggle with is our physicians don't talk to one another. And, bringing it all together is really critical.
And they don't have time, right? You're sitting in the waiting room for 45 minutes, and then you see your doctor for 5 minutes, and then you shell out hundreds of dollars if insurance covers it. If insurance doesn't cover it, I mean, it's a mess. So
yeah. Well, anybody else have any questions? Yep.
Hi, this is Emily, also from Razorfish again. So actually, when you were talking about your audience, what I noticed with the younger women that I work with is that people are now assuming that they're going to have to pay for IVF, where, it used to be like, oh, I'll get a job in my 20s and, get married, have kids. And it's like, oh, I'll get a job. Then I freeze my eggs and, and then maybe I get married and have kids. So it's just more of like, are you seeing people that this is just part of their plan that they've budgeted for, that they're doing this, as opposed to finding out that they are, having infertility issues?
I mean, I think that the infertility issues are just on the rise. And so I think people are just hearing from friends and coworkers, and the statistics are there. People are, it's very challenging to get pregnant, and a lot of that's environmental. And so I think people are just assuming the worst, which is not the worst thing. It's good to have a backup plan. And if, you're able to get pregnant naturally without IVF, that's great. But I think people are just really being more aware and sensitive to the fact that, whether it's a choice to delay and to focus on your career, get married later, or you're just aware that it might be harder because of what we're all up against.
Yeah. I do think younger women, though, are sort of obsessed with longevity and beauty and wellness. And so they're getting hit with all this content on TikTok and Instagram. And they're a little bit more anxious maybe than our generation was. But we're pushing for 100% coverage on the insurance side as well as employee benefits. So what we're seeing is it doesn't matter if insurance companies provide coverage. If your employer does not provide you access to it, you won't have it anyways. And when I sold my company, that was literally the first thing that happened. They changed our employee benefits policies. And so our employees did not have access to fertility benefits and some of the things that a female founder would put in place. And so I think that's a really important part of the conversation that people aren't talking about enough.
I think that's a really great point. I was listening to a panel earlier where this was a topic of conversation, and one of the things that the panel talked about was we can all do things with our employers. We can all raise these things to our employers and have that conversation, because that is something that is woefully undercovered. And, sometimes the HR benefits teams just don't know. And so the voices of employees are really powerful and important in that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at Google, women are like, oh, I hate working here, but they're covering all of this, so they stay. Mm-hmm. And so it is an employee retention tool. But unfortunately, typically most companies that are above 10,000 employees, that's when you start to see these kind of benefits included, which leaves a majority of women out of that population. So.
Any other
Make
questions?
babies, it's not so negative. We'll end on that, right?
I think we have one more question.
Awesome. Hi, Jeff from GoodRx. Hi, Michele. Good to see you. It's been a while. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? With fertility issues being on the rise, do you see like a renewed focus on, hey, where can we evolve and create new treatments for IVF as opposed to what's out and kind of what's been around, in the legacies?
What was the question?
It was, I think, new treatments and evolving in IVF as opposed to what's being out and about already.
Well, what I would say is, like, at least on the venture capital side, it's sort of dried up. So a lot of the investments, they made one fertility bet, which is ridiculous. And they were all brick and mortar clinics. And then when interest rates were on the rise, they weren't profitable. And so that's why you're seeing what's happened with Kindbody, with Maven, a lot of these brick and mortar clinics. And so the VCs are a little bit like resistant to invest in new technology when it's related to egg freezing and IVF. We're trying to change that. And I think there's a big opportunity. So.
With that, I'm going to wrap us up. Thank you, Brand Innovators, for hosting us. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you to my panelists for this incredible conversation, a really important topic. Thank you.
Thank you.